let's talk about some history uh, that is an interesting parallel to what could be occurring very soon when we listen to a aged, addled wannabe king when he decides to try to establish an American empire from South America to essentially the Arctic. Um, we all know that dear leader porn star Humper is now manically obsessed uh, with taking Greenland. They keep trying to shine everybody on, like, we're all negotiating. No, 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 no. It's not coercion. It's coercion uh, at its least worst, um, and it's going to be a military threat at the worst case scenario. But um, I want to bring these details of history to you today because in the event we go after Greenland, which, by the way, we have no reason to do. That's not my opinion. That's Senator Mitch McConnell. He stood on the floor the other day. Why do you need to go into Greenland? For this reason? No, already doing that. We already have that. This reason? No, already have that. This reason? Not valid. We already do that. Okay. There is literally no valid reasons. And there's about 100 wrong reasons to go into Greenland. Now, I will say before I start the big history discussion and how it relates to Greenland is one of my big concerns since last election. In fact, as soon as they announced he had won over Harris, um, that we were going to head almost immediately to a dictatorship. Authoritarianism was going to be the rule of the day right out of the gate, and it was. And we're going to be heading to a dictatorship. Now, what I did not expect was his announcement that the dictatorship would go um, 9,000 miles from South America to the Arctic Circle. He is even more manic than I feared, and I had quite a high level of fear of the stupidity he may ensue, not just on America or Americans, but the world at large. Um, I do think in the background he had when he kicked when he kicked everybody else out of the Helsinki meeting, and he met dear leader met with Putin alone. That's when they carved up the world. But I don't mean that lightly or facetiously. They literally negotiated that Putin can have Ukraine. Trump would not protect them. Trump would work against Europe, work directly against Zelensky in Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and he would hand Putin Ukraine. Then, of course, allow him to take Moldova, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, because he wants the old Iron Curtain back. Okay. In exchange for Trump surrendering parts of Europe to Putin, he gets Greenland and this hemisphere, whatever he wants to do, whatever dictator tyrant shit he wants to pull. And then Z gets the Pacific. Okay. That's the situation we're dealing with. Okay. It's an awfully dumb situation. Because basically Russia is losing in Ukraine, not losing by a little. They're losing by a lot. They're losing in Ukraine as far as the combat theater goes. They're losing the logistics war, the manufacturing war. Remember, all modern warfare is industrial warfare. Okay. Um, they cannot compete with Europe in keeping armaments and ammunition flowing uh, to the battlefield. Russia is killing most of their adult men between the ages of 18 and 40. Okay. Their economy is dwindling. Dear leader, because he thinks he's going to own Venezuela, Canada, Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, Canada, and he's going to be the king of the Western Hemisphere and be a dictator rule to all in a very Soviet Union part two sort of a way. Um, Putin's fine. Putin know he can't conquer the world. He always knew that Ionovitch's communist global theory was all bullshit. So now they're just dividing up the world and splitting up the spoils. This is like the families in New York City or the families in New Jersey, the mafias. We carve up the area, we all make profits. It's literally it's what we're dealing with Trump, Putin, and Z. If we don't end up in World War III out of this, I'll be surprised. Because we're already at, like I said before, we're already at World War III-ish. We're already there. Okay. Now, are we going to do the damage all again like we did in World War II? Remember, we killed 100 million people. We leveled hundreds of cities. Are we going to repeat that so three dictators can run a planet of 9 billion people? Okay, let's talk about history. Why Greenland isn't going to go the way Trump, Miller, Vought, and Bannon and the rest of the American Nazi Party, the Goomba Squad, the proud babies with power. The way Greenland is not going to go the way they think it's going to go. Okay, because they're now adamant that we have to control Greenland. That's absolutely fucking nonsense. We do not control Germany, yet we have bases there. We do not control Greenland, but we have bases there. We do not control Belgium, but we have bases there. We do not control Italy, but we have bases there. We have a relationship there. We have economic partnerships. We have military intelligence partnerships, law enforcement partnerships, human rights partnerships. To say that we need Greenland because you can't afford for Russia or China to take it. One, China's not taking Greenland. That's Pantosol. By the way, neither is fucking Russia. Okay, because if Russia attacked Greenland, a territory of Denmark, we'd invoke the mutual defense clauses in the NATO agreement, and we'd all attack Russia. This whole claim that Denmark can't fucking protect Greenland is so reductive, so farcical, so idiotic. Literally, sometimes I literally think, dear leader, porn star Humper has an IQ so low he couldn't even be inducted into the army. He's that stupid. The problem is the people around him aren't stupid. And they're the ones whispering into the little dementia patient's ear, giving him these ideas. Because I really do think he's not running the country. Dear leader is not making the decisions. Stephen Miller and Ross Vought are making the decisions. The country isn't being run by who you think it's being run by. They just push him out there once or twice a day for him to go, nap, woke, insurgency, invasion, nap. And then they drag him back into somewhere the public can't see him, and they go about doing whatever the fuck they want to do. Trump is actually making zero of the decisions. They just shove a piece of paper in front of him and goes, I did good, I'm winning. Yeah. Okay. If we go after Greenland, here is the example why it will not work. We had something in 1956 called the Suez Canal Crisis. Okay. And it was a major international crisis. It involved one of the strongest militaries in the world, Britain, deciding all of a sudden that it was going to go after Egypt and disrupt the world and possibly throw the world back into another world war right after we got done signing the Treaty of San Francisco. The Treaty of San Francisco was 1951 that ended World War II. This is not 5 years later. This is 1956. The British decide to go ape shit and go into Egypt and deal with Nasser and try to basically seize the Suez Canal. The problem is that Britain may have had a legitimate international concern with Nasser, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the leader of Egypt, nationalizing the Suez Canal in July of 1956. Um, Britain still thought the British crown ruled the world, even though the world wars proved that not to be true. Um, Remember, Britain was literally days from losing the World War more than once. Uh, what Britain was really worried about was the shipments of oil to Britain. And it kind of um, smacked Britain on the head of the PP. And they got a little mad because they thought they made the decisions like they used to in the Middle East. Remember, like countries like Iraq, that's just Britain redrawing a map after World War One. Oh, we decide what the countries are now. That was what Britain was used to. Okay. Um, they still had that imperialist mindset, and they decided, well, if Egypt's going to challenge anything that we're even remotely interested in, sound familiar? Um, we're going to lash out militarily. So Prime Minister Anthony Eden believed that the British government could act militarily without a catastrophic military or a financial consequence. Boy, was he wrong on the latter. So they nationalized the canal in July of 56. By October of 56, here comes Britain, France, and Israel, also known as the usual suspects. And they decided to invade Egypt and try to seize back the canal. The second, the second, the news stations, especially the shortwave that can transmit long distances around the globe, as soon as the shortwave channels, including BBC, back then they had several shortwave channels, um, started broadcasting from the region that there was now a British, French, Israeli war against Egypt, and the Suez Canal was going to be, the next fire starter for global conflict. Now, as soon as that news story came over the radios, the sterling, the British sterling, the currency of England, came under intense selling pressure. All of a sudden, one of the world's reserve currencies was literally being auctioned off. Minutes after the sterling came under pressure, foreign governments started dumping bonds that were priced and marked in British sterling pounds. What did they do? They sold their sterling marked bonds and bought US dollar marked bonds. Because why would they want to be investing in a country that was going to commit financial and fiscal suicide starting World War III in Egypt? The reaction in the markets was almost immediate. Now, what really spooked Britain, and they realized, now we got a problem, is the dollar and the sterling reserves in the central bank, the Bank of England, just started draining. Like it was like watching a above ground swimming pool with a hole in the side of the pool. Just the water level just go down and down and down and down and down. That's exactly what's happened to the pile of cash at the Bank of England. It was a massive global sell off, and it started to cost Bank of England, and Britain proper money, real money. Okay. What was the risk? What was the exposure for Britain? Remember, this is 1956 when the economies were a lot smaller. Okay. There were $3 billion in sterling bonds afloat around the globe. They go rolling into Egypt to take back the Suez Canal. Like we took back the Suez Canal from Noriega in Panama. By the way, that we had that game plan since the late 1960s. Literally no people back in the day that were in Panama doing all the planning in the event we have to invade. It was a regular practice. We knew exactly how we were going to invade Panama and what changes we needed to make every year since probably the late 70s. So when we invaded Panama, it was like, oh, wow, that's a surprise. No, not really. Noriega was on the dole of the CIA and the DIA for years. He was a corrupt government. He was doing corrupt shit for us. So the fact we had battle plans to take it over anytime we wanted, and he was a pawn for the intelligence and the drug enforcement agency. Well, what a surprise, huh? Not. So the problem was the reason why the reserve level kept rapidly dropping was just a small percentage of conversions out of their back bonds, their currency back bonds to someone else's, mainly the US dollars back bonds. It would only take a small amount of conversions before they would run out of cash. Then when they run out of cash, then you got to start liquidating shit to pay your debt, or you're going to be delisted off the exchanges. You're not going to be a sovereign currency. Now, what screwed England was Prime Minister Eden, um, because Britain was acting unilaterally. France and Israel came in at the last minute, but it was basically a British operation. They were defying international law. Put a pin in that. And everybody was worried they were brokering their own conflict that would create a larger, widespread conflict all throughout Northern Africa, back through the Caucasus, Middle East, up to the Caucasus region. Oh, look, we have World War II restarted as World War III. So all of a sudden, sterling marked bonds purchased in the sterling pound, were no longer viewed as stable. If Britain was going to act this way post World War II, especially so close to the end of World War II, then they weren't seen as a reliable financial partner in a stable government and a stable leadership. So many people around the world started to divest from sterling notes. And that immediately uh, put Britain into a tizzy. And Britain never had backing from the US government because Eisenhower didn't want anything to do with using military force in the Suez Canal. Okay. Number one thing, obviously, he was a general in Europe, in World War II. So, he just didn't want World War II again. He saw the carnage himself with his own two eyes. He saw every major battle in Europe. He didn't want to go through that again. He also knew with Britain and France and Israel lining up together, that would pretty much push most of the Middle East states and a lot of the African states, push them into the arms of the Soviet Union. And that's a problem. And how Eden actually fucked up, Eden never even bothered to give us a call. He basically did this without consultation with us. 5 years after the treaty was signed that ends World War II, Eden goes out on a limb all by himself and doesn't even tell Eisenhower. That pissed off Ike. And Ike was not a man to trifle with. Eisenhower didn't pull any punches, though. He did not want them in this doing this shit at the Suez Canal. He thought this could diplomatically be handled through the Organization of States or some other mechanism. So what did Eisenhower do? Um, he knuckled down in the first moments of the crisis. Britain is begging for help because their reserves are being drained. Eisenhower goes, no dollar support. Emergency dollar support? No, no, we're not doing that. So we immediately put the Prime Minister of England literally over the coals to cook them. Okay, because they kind of assumed that in the post-World War order that we'd immediately start throwing money at them to bail them out of their own stupidity. Ike wasn't done there. Ike goes around to the International Monetary Fund or wherever the organization was back then. I think it was still called the IMF back then. And he blocks intervention by the international money mechanisms that put further stress on the sterling. Then the real threat came down, the brutal threat. Eisenhower threatens to sell all U.S. holdings in sterling. All notes, all bonds. If they're marked in sterling pounds, we're selling them. Yeah. Remember that point. Put a pin in that too. Okay. This is all going to sound familiar in a few minutes. Okay. Now, what would happen if America decided to start selling sterling notes? Financial instruments issued by the British government that are marked in the sterling currency. What would happen? All the other older holders of sterling notes and bonds would have freaked the fuck out that minute. First sale hits the news wires, first sales reported on the radio. Every other seller is going to be looking for an out. It's like the movie Margin Call with Kevin Spacey and Zachary Quinto and Demi Moore, Jeremy Irons, when they did make the decision to sell all their derivatives, mortgage derivatives, and leave everybody else hanging the bag. That's exactly what had happened if the U.S. decided to dump sterling in '56. We'd have dumped those sterling-backed instruments. Britain would have been screwed with no recourse. Now, we had the upper arm because the International Committee for the Monetary Funds couldn't move without our vote for yes. So we had everybody backed into a corner. But Eisenhower wasn't like an evil bastard or anything. He just told him, I don't want you doing this. And he goes, you pull your troops out of the Suez, I'll give you some emergency backing to the sterling so you guys can settle down and kind of lick your wounds. That really pissed off Britain, but Ike was like, too bad, too sad. You should have called before you did something this stupid. So Eisenhower's message in the end was very, very blunt. Withdraw out of the Suez or we'll destroy your currency. No, notice I didn't say anything about U.S. warplanes, U.S. battleships, cruisers, airborne troops, Rangers, Marines. Haven't talked about any military asset because it didn't take a single thing from the military. It didn't take a bullet. It didn't take a bandage. It didn't take a C-Rat meal. Didn't require anything. All you had to do was go after the currency weibos and give them a little tug. Then Britain was like, uh-oh, we screwed up. Yeah, you did. You did. Okay. They go in October. This is how quick it goes to shit for Britain. By November, they're hemorrhaging money out of the reserves. They're in trouble. Not that a bank is in trouble. The currency system and the entire banking system of England is now in trouble. 1 month. 1 month. And the Bank of England is pulling a Titanic. It's taking on water. The Bank of England did not have the reserves to fight this off on their own. Oh, and guess what happened? The confidence in the sterling bond suddenly dropped, and people weren't buying or trading or getting involved in new issuances of any sterling based instrument. Nobody wanted to touch Britain financially with a 10-foot pole over the Suez. Because Britain could have deployed 2x, 3x, 4x the troops. They could have pulled troops out of Africa and India. They could have thrown a lot more military hardware into Egypt, and they could have gone into a full-blown crazy war in Egypt. But their problem was, can the sterling pound survive? And it became very quickly a reality for the Bank of England and the Prime Minister Eden that they didn't have the global power they thought they had. And they had grossly, negligently overcalculated their world power, their world power. November of 1956 was the first time in what, hundreds, 1,000 years, a millennia, that Britain didn't have imperial autonomy. Ever since the Queen floated the East India Trading Company and Queen Victoria became the largest heroin dealer on the planet, um, the military, the corporation, the international corporations, and the government were all one thing. They thought they could literally march in anywhere in the world and nobody would resist them, and nobody would question their action. All of a sudden they get the door slammed right in their face. No. Now, the United States was a big part of this, sure, but we weren't the only ones. A whole bunch of countries were all, and a whole bunch of private investors started to walk away from the sterling instruments because they were just seen as unsafe. If Britain was willing to do this today, what are they willing to do next week, next month, next year? Am I going to put my money back into Britain when Britain is going to do a series of very, very, very stupid things and do them on their own without the coordination of the alliance? The only reason your currency works, no matter where you are, sterling pound in England, the Canadian dollar, the euro in Europe, the US dollar, whatever. The only reason anybody's currency works is confidence. You lose that confidence, nobody wants to trust you anymore. Nobody wants to do business with you anymore. No one wants to spend their money with you anymore. Confidence is everything. The biggest rescuing from a bad confidence spell, probably in modern history, is the Tylenol poisonings in Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson understood empirically what the poison bottles meant to them. They had an unsafe product that nobody could trust, and they were about to lose all confidence in the over-the-counter medical market. What did Johnson and Johnson do? They pulled every single bottle off the shelf, destroyed everything in the warehouses, re-inspected all the lines, came up with new packages, and reintroduced their product. Why? There was no other way to restore confidence in the product or the company. Cost them a fortune, by the way, but obviously they survived. Now, here's where we run into a massive problem because dear leader porn star Humper can't read. He's definitely not read history. Okay, I don't think he's ever picked up a history book or an economics book for sure. Just the way he speaks, he does not have a clue what he is talking about. He's constantly in bullshit mode. He's the dummy at the bar that wants to tell you he's the smartest person at the nearby university because he's taken 2 night courses and he doesn't have a degree. That's the level of understanding he has on most of the major issues, which scares the hell out of me. So, of course, if you don't know history, how can you compare anything of current events to things prior? You have no historical reference when you're an utter fucking moron. You can't run a military unless you have an economy that can pay for the military. Britain learned that really quick. If your currency does not have confidence, you don't have a strong currency. If you don't have a strong currency, your economy will fail. If your economy fails, you can't pay for your military. That's why the Brits put their tail between their legs and left. Oops, we did a bad. Yeah, you did. Now, a lot of the things that Britain did in the Suez Canal is exactly what dear leader pornstar Harper's about to do. What did Britain do? Literally violated the freshly pressed, fresh off the press, freshly written, freshly read, freshly distributed post World War II order in the Treaty of San Francisco, the Organization of States, all the other shit they're trying to do internationally. Britain just goes, nah, I'm just going to throw that out. What's happening today with Greenland? Greenland is actually a territory of an ally. So we're going to invade a territory, an ally, and start a war with an ally? That doesn't seem to be good international reading or good international norms. Well, the way the world saw the Suez Canal was this was Britain just going lawless. They're going to do whatever they wanted. After complaining about the Japanese and the Germans in World War II, they were going to go out and do whatever the fuck they wanted. What do we look like going after Greenland? We don't care about international treaties. We don't care about international laws. We don't care about the UN. We don't care about our allies. And we're just going to walk in and do something nobody else wants us to do. Sound familiar? Now, going after Greenland would be a violation not only of the NATO agreement and the UN Charter, but it would also be violation of US law because when the Senate ratifies an international treaty, it becomes what? Na 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 na. It becomes US law. Attacking a NATO ally is violating the NATO Charter. The NATO Charter, which we are signatory to, which the Senate has ratified. We'd be breaking our own law. Just like Prime Minister Eden was considered lawless throughout the world, you're hearing this in Davos today. You heard it from Starmer. You heard it from Macron. You heard it from Havel. You have a lawless leader running a mafioso-style government like the gangster communism system under Putin. And now, because Putin has invaded Ukraine, Trump needs to invade Greenland. So I guess that means Taiwan belongs to China now under the Trumpian theory? Because all you have to do is say, we have to have that. I need to have that. It's so important I have it. That's all the excuse you need. You just need to be a little toddler with an IQ of 56 standing in front of the lectern. I have to have it. It's mine. It's so important. It's mine. Well, then Ukraine is Putin and Taiwan is Z's, because that's the way you're dividing up the fucking world. Everybody else and any sane people inside of the United States, we all looking at this going, this is just violating our own law. This is just attacking our own allies so he can set up another slush fund. Because the output of Venezuela's action was a slush fund. Hey, Delta Force, how do you guys like being involved in a next Netflix robbery movie? Because that's what you did. You didn't do military stuff. You didn't do law enforcement stuff. You're literally a co-conspirator to a robbery to ingratiate dear leader porn star Humper and his wealthiest campaign donor. You're involved in an international criminal conspiracy to defraud multiple countries and the U.S. taxpayer. Because what'd you do with the money you said that was coming to the United States? You immediately moved it to Qatar to a numbered account only you and your campaign donor have control of. Okay? So, hope you like being gang members. Homie, we're gonna invade some more countries, homie. We gotta steal some shit, homie. It's like that bank in Army of the Dead, homie. We're gonna get our game on. We're gonna get our gang up. We're gonna go hit the vault. We're gonna steal all the money. That's what being in the Army means now. Being in the United States, going to Minneapolis and shooting your own people, going to Venezuela and Greenland to steal shit. Pat yourselves on the back. Give yourself a big patriot t-shirt. Quick, wave the flag. By the way, markets don't give a shit. Investors don't give a shit about your politics, your imperialism, or your dick-headed stupidity. Markets are going to move to protect capital. You already saw that in Venezuela. What will American oil companies who aren't already there do? Go into Venezuela. Why? Because it's a shit show where they can't make any money, and that's not good for their capital assets. So what did the guy say to Trump's face in the goddamn conference room at the White House? We're not going there. Why? It's a fucking shit show. Why the hell would I go there to lose money? I told you about sterling bonds under Prime Minister Eden in 1956. What's the equivalent to sterling bonds of 1956? What's the equivalent today in America? The U.S. Treasury investment vehicles. T-bills, notes, bonds, U.S. government-backed debt. Who owns it? Everybody under the sun. Japan is number one, by the way, $3.5 trillion. Britain is huge. Australia is huge. China used to be huge. They sold off a lot. That's why Japan and Australia have so much more. They bought it. Okay. Our pension funds have T-bills. Your retirement account, your 401k, your 503, what is it? What's my pension? I have a nonprofit pensions because one of the companies I worked at, I figured 506k or whatever, 506b, whatever the pension one is. Yeah, all your long-term saving, managed portfolios, retirements, yada, yada, yada. They're all invested in U.S. treasuries. Heavily invested in U.S. treasuries. Okay. U.S. treasuries represent the future economic stability of the United States of America and you and me, the working class American. There's $27 trillion in U.S. bonds laid out there around the world. Not 3 billion sterling, 27 trillion with a T in US dollars. There's a lot of liability hanging out there. That's what I'm saying. Half, well, maybe not half, probably a third, a little more than a third, probably 36, 38%. Doing the math in my head for the numbers I was looking up last night. About a third of it, a little over a third, is held by foreign interests. Okay. US Treasuries is the reason why the US dollar is the global reserve currency. It's US Treasuries are the backbone for the collateral market chains, for bank balance sheets, for derivative margining. Okay. Remember the housing crisis, the mortgage crisis? That's all based on derivatives, CDOs, collateral debt obligations, sent CDOs, a CDO of a CDO, dumbest fucking non-mathematical shit they've ever tried, and they got away with it. How did they hedge their losses on the beast they can't control or manage? US Treasuries. US Treasury isn't just debt, isn't just the national debt. It's literally the operating system of global finance. Everything that looks for long-term stability looks at treasury instruments, treasury investment vehicles. It is the long play of every industrialized country on earth, including Russia and China. Now, that 27 trillion comes with a little bit of a protection, but not that much. It's not like the US can be forced into an immediate classic bond run. We hold too much of our own bonds. Now, unless a bond king here onshore went apeshit, panicked, and started dumping, you know, an immediate collapse, not really likely. Okay. But the midterm to long term damage, holy shit, put on a helmet. Here it comes. You gotta remember the debt itself, the way it's structured within the economies of the entire planet, the debt is almost a currency of itself. How do you project that your investment fund is solid? Because you've got a solid hedge in treasuries. That means you've got long-term stability. Why is Social Security and the teachers union still paying out retirement funds and pensions? Because they got the market to play and they also got the backing of long-term stable returns with US treasuries. There's no like the pound collapses, game over. That's not the same historic parallel that I'm trying to draw, but when you start compounding everything together, it turns into an ugly picture fairly quickly. Now, the first thing that happens when Trump goes after Greenland is the entire NATO system collapses. The war in Ukraine spills over until Moldova, Estonia, possibly Latvia within weeks. Europe will not be in a war footing. Europe will be in a full-blown war with Russia. Once we destroy the defense agreements and the mutual assistance agreements, then it's Lord of the Flies. It's every nation for itself, and nobody cares about anybody else. Okay. But what happens is the foreign reserve official, the central bank regulators overseas in many countries, everywhere from Japan to Germany, um, they stop increasing holdings in anything US. they start converting from US dollar to literally anything else on the planet that will deliver any safety, any haven. Now, the problem is gold is already super high. Man, we invade Greenland, you're gonna see gold triple overnight, several nights in 1 week. The price of gold is gonna get so out of control. Good luck. Okay. And once gold goes crazy, the euro's gonna go crazy, the yen is gonna go crazy. Yen's already having problems. Somebody is trying to short the shit out of the yen, the US to yen conversions, USD to YD, JYD, um, or JYN. Somebody's really screwing with that market, and it's been teetering at about 160 to 1. And if the Bank of Japan intervenes, a lot of people, especially a lot of the shorts, are going to be caught with their pants down. A lot of people are going to lose money. Invading Greenland, 1,000 times worse, and then it becomes 1,000 times worse for Japan. And Japan's already up to their eyeballs in problems. They got a demographic problem, which is one of the worst in the world. They literally can't replace their population. Um, It won't be a panic sell like the Suez Canal, but it will be a, "Hey, I don't wanna fund you anymore." Like, we could issue a new they print up money at the Federal Reserve on a computer. That's the way it really works. And they go, "Oh, okay, now we have, $100 billion more to sell in treasury instruments on the open market." Nobody buys. Or the buying is only domestic, and with all the other problems that would be going on at the time, that domestic cash flow to buy up the excess bonds, the excess T-bills, won't be there. We're gonna have the first treasury sale where we have treasury notes left over, nobody will buy them. That happens more than once, we lose the ability to sell debt. We lose the ability to have the US dollar as the global reserve currency underpinning everything from fricking again, from Japan to Mexico to Brazil to Germany to England to Canada to Australia, around the world, okay? The US currency is a thing. It won't be when we start issuing cycles where nobody wants to buy, or we simply cannot make enough money because we can't sell it all. Okay. Once that happens, panic is going to strike the market. Now, where it starts to get ugly, you start to be forced into the things they wanted to avoid at all costs during the mortgage crisis and the credit collapse. The first round of suggestions before we were dumb enough to bail out the criminal conspiracy that screwed the world economy and especially screwed Americans, the first suggestion was the banks just have to take haircuts. They have to write down, they have to mark to market all their assets, and all that marking goes down. That means the banks lose money, their equities fall off. Nobody wants to buy the bank stocks. We're starting to get the trickle effect. Okay. Repos, once the bond markets get screwed up, finance gets screwed up. You're gonna have funding problems even before the bond auctions fail. As soon as they're a hint that we won't have a successful bond auction, the cat's out of the bag. We're screwed. Law of the street. Hey, that street corner's got, baby powder, not cocaine. Well, all of a sudden, nobody shows up to your street corner to buy any dope, and you ain't making any money because you sold a false product. It happens just like that. Boom, done. Now, after they fuck up the economy, The Treasury and the big banks, the big investment houses, private equity, hedge funds, they all retreat to try to protect themselves. Like I said, it turns into Lord of the Flies. Every man for themselves. Stab the guy next to you if you think you're going to survive. Well, then the Federal Reserve is going to feel needed, required to, come in and start doing qualitative easing to write down the assets and have the taxpayer take the loss for the write downs on the bonds, just like we did during the mortgage crisis. They protected assets by carving the money out of your and your family's ass, your savings, and your retirement. That's how they solved the credit and mortgage crisis in 2009, by simply carving it out of your ass and my ass. You fuck treasuries up? You screw the pooch on T-bills? We can't make enough money to pull us out of that hole. Now be prepared what they're going to do to us when that hole is dug. Because you saw what happened in 2009. You saw what happened with the big, beautiful bill. You saw what happened with your health care. They're threatening your retirements, not just Social Security. They're threatening the entire actuary insurance model. They sound like commie dingbacks on crack. All to appease Daddy, our dear leader, because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, so all pretend he's right. People start swapping out their dollars for literally anything else. And I can see that. I just bought Canadian dollars and euros. They're in the vault at the bank. Yeah, I'm not sitting only in US dollars anymore. Not with the Trumpian policies we're facing. No way. Next big consulting check I get, I'm going to go buy some more Canadian dollars and some more euros. So, yeah, you screw up T-bills and the rest of the countries around the world, you think Italy's buying things in dollars the next morning? Hell no. Hell no. They'll look to Germany. They'll look to the EU. They'll look to Canada. Canada is one of the most resource-rich countries on Earth. They have a stable, sane government, except for Alberta and Danielle Smith. She's a Nazi twat. She loves dear leader. Like, what's his name? Peter Polier. He's like Trump, but even dumber, but Canadian. They have a court system that actually runs things fairly, not for the rich people and not for lobbyists. Okay. You think Italy, after we invade Greenland, after T-bills start heading south, Italy's going to be looking for U.S. notes, U.S. mark notes, dollar markups? No, nobody is. Now, here's the real problem. Soon as the Fed intervenes, the rest of the central bankers around the world is going to say the Federal Reserve was in on it. They don't have any independence. They knew Trump was going to submarine the T-bills, and they just let him do it. So they're in on the conspiracy. They're in on the robbery. They are an accessory before and after the fact. What did I say about confidence? Once people lose confidence in a market, your market is fucked. Bad fucked. Not, hey, how do you like your eggs kind of way in the morning? No, not that way. I mean, seriously, you are seriously screwed once they no longer believe that the U.S. economic policy is being run by a dementia patient with a criminal conviction with bad ideology and an authoritarian, if not Nazi, bent. As soon as that hits, all confidence is lost. What do you think happens if we can't issue any more T-bills? You only have 2 choices. Slash government, and we all know what that means. Increase military and spending, increases ICE budget, cancel every service for every working American, destroy Medicare, Social Security, the arts, schools, education, public universities, destroy that overnight. Why? Because they will protect the asset before they protect Americans. The bank crisis proved that 1000%. They didn't care if you starved, you froze to death living outdoors because you got foreclosed on in your home. That meant nothing to them. Ensuring that a ledger looked good and the wealthy stayed wealthy was the entire point of the bank bailouts. The bank bailouts was chicken scratch compared to the amount of fucking treasuries that are on the global market right now. Rand Paul and Barney Franks both said the bank crisis cost us about $12 trillion. We're talking 27 trillion. Again, trillion with a T. More than double the risk. More than double the shit pile we have to clean up. Now their only other option to wiping out all government services while increasing the military budget and ISIS budget, of course, because even the Democrats want to do that. You hear that? Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker want to give ICE more money. The only other option is raising taxes on billionaires. What chance do you think there is of that? I put the chances of raising taxes enough on billionaires to bail us out of the global crisis we created with our own default on our own treasury notes at about negative 4,000%. They will destroy your life as an American. They will happily watch every mall, hospital, city hall, coffee shop, deli, and laundromat to close the United States as long as they could jerry rig it so it doesn't impact them. Again, because that's exactly the way they ran the bank bailouts. And that's not ancient history. Even if there's some youngins here watching me today, that wasn't that long ago, dudes. 2009, 16 years. They literally took a $12 trillion chunk out of the American middle class's asses to protect their own felony behavior. Because what they did was commit millions of felonies. When it came to reconcile the problem, they just ignored the fact they committed bank fraud, wire fraud, mortgage fraud, lied to investors, lied to their board of directors, and we just forgot all that and we handed them trillions of dollars. If you think the next crisis is going to be any different, you are so Pollyanna, I can't help you. Now, the thing is, if you thought the prospect of Britain going under in 56 because of the Suez Canal was bad, if the US Treasury and the US dollar fail as the global underpinning, the global common denominator of finance and economics throughout the world, know this one thing: there is no replacement. If everybody in 56 gave up on the sterling bonds, they had plenty of places to go. They could have done franc marked bonds from France and Switzerland. US dollar. There's other places to go. This economic system that we rely on globally and have been relying on globally for 75 years, it goes under. There's nothing to replace it. Nothing. And I'm sure there's already a moron online somewhere. You know who I'm talking about. The guy who's got a dark like poster of Joe Rogan and Kyle Rittenhouse in his mama's basement in his bedroom. Already telling us how Bitcoin will save us. Because what is the administration talking about? What is Trump himself talking about? Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. Bitcoin is nothing. Bitcoin is bullshit. Bitcoin is a ongoing criminal conspiracy based on musical chairs. If you can't find a seat, you lose your entire investment. That's it. The best thing I could possibly say about Bitcoin, it's an unregulated penny stock that's absolutely worthless. That's the best I could say about it. Okay. So if you think Bitcoin is going to replace the T-bill, your mind is polluted by something. Could be meth. Could be because you blew too many proud babies. I don't know. But that's not happening. There is no replacement for treasury notes, T-bills. There just isn't. Once the dollar destabilizes, the United States goes into a massive recession, far worse than COVID, far worse than the bank crisis. Global recession soon follows thereafter. Because we were already telling Europe to go fuck themselves, and we doubled down by invading Greenland, all our allies decouple for us for their own survival. Nobody buys U.S. instruments. Right now, everybody buys U.S. instruments. Everybody. Even if they tell you they're not buying U.S. instruments, they are. Nobody will touch us if the T-bill and the dollar starts looking weak. Because Dear Leader has this, thing, whether it's explicit or implicit, doesn't matter right now. They need us more than we need them. That's a really stupid stance. Militarily, it's stupid. Diplomatically, it's stupid. Um, just general, international relationships. That's dumb as fuck. Economically, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. That's what I'm saying. Trump does not know how to read. He's never read a serious book. He can't have any possibility of knowing what the fuck he's doing to the economy and what his suggestions are risking in the economy. I literally don't think he has the ability whatsoever to even acknowledge his own stupidity on the subject. This is Dunning-Kruger at a level that amazes me. This is like me getting into an argument with Ben, the guy that ran housing for Trump in the first term, the brain surgeon. What the hell was his name? Ben Carter? What the hell was his name? Anyways, the guy's like a super accomplished surgeon. He separated conjoined twins in a surgery. Like it took him like 22 hours and he did it successfully. The guy's a brilliant surgeon. Fucking moron politically. Okay. He didn't know his ass from his elbow when it came to housing. And I don't even think he cared. Okay. But I'm not getting into an argument with Ben on brain surgery or how to perform surgery on the major parts of the body or disconnecting nervous systems between two human beings. I have no idea how any of that works. I'm not going to get into an argument with my recent surgeon when she used the robot to put my whole stomach back together because it was falling apart because of a distension and a hernia. My abdomen was literally tearing apart and coming. A seam was developing in the middle, a little hole. Okay, she had put me all back together. I'm going to argue about how she's going to do this surgery. No, I don't know how she's going to do the surgery, but I understand from reading her CV, she's the best one to do this surgery in the area. Okay. I would have literally had to flown to that place in Hamilton, Ontario. That's all they do is this type of surgery, and that's all they've been doing for 80 years. But for my neck of the woods, best doctor around. You think I'm going to get in an argument with her? No. I'm not going to get into an argument with Dr. Lisa Randall over the gravitrons, considering she's leading a scientific experiment trying to detect what? The gravitron. I think she knows more about it than I do. That realization doesn't exist in Dear Leader's head. He literally thinks he's the smartest person on every subject possible in the universe, and he's a better person than anybody on the planet. And, malignant narcissism is what he has, according to several psychologists who are now or psychiatrists who are talking publicly. And that term malignant narcissism comes from the psychological evaluation of Adolf Hitler. That's when the term was made up. So yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Now, did the Hitler and Trump aren't the only two to ever be malignant narcissists. Ceausescu was a malignant narcissist. Idi Amin. Most dictators are. Okay. But Trump's got it 10 out of 10. He literally can't get through his day without realizing he is superior to every other human that has ever existed on Earth. Where the administration, the nationalist administration under Dear Leader runs afoul is the whole status of reserve currency of the US dollar, why the US dollar is the reserve currency. It's because we were granted that. People agree that, hey, that's a good currency. We should use that as a reserve currency. Britain used to have that too until they invaded the Suez. And they're no longer a reserve currency. Warning, Dr. Smith. Warning, warning. Um, you can't use your currency as a coercive nationalist tool. And Dear Leader's all about that. That's why he wants to get rid of Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. He's copying Erdogan in Turkey, who did the same thing. He fired their central banker. He put his buddy, his stooge, in his stead, and they immediately ran inflation up to 80%. Yeah, inflation's been bad after COVID, no doubt, no doubt. Supply chains getting fucked up, more dollars than there are supplies. Inflation happens. That's just the way markets and capital and supply works. Okay. Um, far worse, far worse situation if this goes to shit. I can tell you that. Um, the reason people like the dollar, the reason that people like the U.S. Treasury and its issuances, for decades, it's been considered risk free. You invade Greenland, you add risk. Just like when Britain invaded Egypt, they assumed risk. They didn't have a means to cover. Why did the mortgage crisis happen? The banks took on more risk than they could cover, and they did so recklessly. But again, that was $12 trillion in damage. We're talking $27 trillion in damage. Okay. If you think the crisis and the recession after the mortgage crisis was bad, you don't know what we're up against if treasuries go south. We'll be lucky if it's only 10 times worse than it was in the banking crisis. Now, what's the direct parallel between 56 and 2026 is wars are not determined by militaries. They're determined by financing. All industrial war is based on finance. You have to apply capital to a purpose. How do we apply capital? With financing. Okay. The weaker our treasuries become, the weaker the dollar becomes, the less we can do that. The less stable our economy is, the less stable Europe is, the less stable the globe is. Now, I think and I'll say this right now, I think they're completely okay with this shit. If the entire economy went into another Great Depression, they would just simply lick their wounds and then take whatever assets they had left, convert them, gamble them, whatever they had to do so they could buy up whatever was left in the country, leaving us with absolutely nothing. They literally want it all. They do not want a middle class. They want to kill it. My wife is convinced of this. She was talking about that at dinner the other night. She goes, I literally think they want to assassinate the American middle class. Up to and to doctors, accountants, lawyers, school administrators, the professionals too. They want them wiped out. So this is the scariest part to me is nobody should want a problem with the dollar or the treasury. History says there's going to be one if you go after a country and violate all international norms and all alliances and treaties. Right. We will be at such a risk. We will be in a horrible state. Once we set foot with malicious intent, and there's no good intent in it in Greenland. Okay. Everything Trump says he needs Greenland for, we already have. He just wants to plant the flag there, like Putin wants to place the flag in Kiev. You know, the front of my house has a Ukraine flag. It's been flying there for years now. Okay. Had neighbors in the neighborhood, they're Ukrainian. They came and knocked my door. They're like, "Are you Ukrainian?" I go, "No, I'm Irish. My wife's German." We just think Putin's an asshole. We think Ukraine should be left alone and be its sovereign state. Nobody should be messing with Ukraine, just like nobody should be messing with Austria or messing with Italy. And they're like, "Oh, wow." And he goes, because we even have matching, you know, the yellow and blue. We have LED lights that come on for like 6 hours at night and they flash the flag's colors at night. And they're like, "Wow, you guys are really supportive." I go, "Yeah, Slava Ukraine, bro. I'm 100% behind the Ukrainians, 100% behind you, your friends, and your family. Absolutely." The guy was shocked. He's like, I know Americans, some Americans supported us, but wow." I'm like, "Yeah, we're down with you, buddy." And then I told him, you know, I'm a Cold War veteran who's stationed in West Germany. My wife is German. Okay. Fuck the Ruskies. Okay. Commie shits. Now, here's the massive risk. I'm going to go a little longer today. I'll probably go to about an hour and a half because there's a couple other points I want to make. Um, During the mortgage crisis, late 2008, I think it was, Ivan picked up the phone. "Hey, comrade, you in China, you got a bunch of T-bills. We got a bunch of T-bills. Let's fuck with America. Let's dump our T-bills." And China was like, yeah, we think the Americans are a pain in the ass too, but we still need to make money and we still need jobs." Because believe it or not, even though China is the manufacturing center of the world, they have a massive unemployment problem. They also have a massive demographic problem, and they have a massive investment problem, malinvestment problem, to be specific. So China didn't take them up on that. Do you have any idea what would happen if China and Russia started dumping T-bills in the middle of the mortgage crisis? We'd still be in that recession. Then we went through COVID. See where I'm going? Now, the reason China declined was self-preservation. If they had to start to de-dollarize, you know, just like Britain, watching their reserves literally fall by the hour, it was the same thing that happened to China. But the thing is, what happens if the international players say, "Fuck it"? They go ape shit. They stop carrying. They go, "Well, yeah, I know in China we're gonna have an unemployment problem. Our troops are gonna be out the street. We're gonna have to shoot 10,000 people because of the riots. People will starve to death. People will die early because of untreated disease because the hospitals will close. Fuck it. We're done with the Americans. We're done fucking with them. We're done with them. We're done with all this. We're out." Now that takes a few assumptions. I know foreign leaders would have to go pretty cray cray. They would have to knowingly take on the losses. They would have to decide that the strategic damage to the U.S. Was worth it. Um, and the coordination, if they attack the dollar or the T-bills or both, would have to be coordinated as a political effort, knowing you're not making money at this and this is going to hurt you. But we push enough buttons. The phone call was already made. The idea was already put on the table. What do you do if somebody says yes to that proposal? Just dump it. We'll take the loss. Fuck it. Well, tomorrow's another day. Because that's what the US government told us, the working class, during the bank bailouts. Fuck it. We're taking it out of your ass. We know it's a loss. We're okay with it. What do we do if all the Gulf sovereign nations, I mean, combined, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they've only got about 0.9 trillion. But they just go, hey, we can de-dollarize, take the hit, we'll be fine by next year. Just using them as an example. And that just causes a cascade. Okay. Because once one group starts selling cheap, everybody else is going to want to throw shit off their balance sheets before it gets so cheap they get caught holding the bag. So then it becomes a fire sale. The fire sale turns into a panic sell. Bond values. Now, if they're willing to take the haircut on their investment wherever, Saudi Arabia, China, whatever, it throws the whole system into a panic. That would look a lot like March 2020, the COVID dip, but it's all intentful. It's not because of the world. We can't run the economy because people are getting sick and we're having to s- slow down supply chains. We're not talking about some natural occurrence like a pandemic. We're talking about intent of humans and the emotionality and the reactionality of humans. This could cascade to a very negative place very fast. Um, Now, what the Federal Reserve would do, they would go into unlimited buying of treasury purchases, every vehicle they get their hands on to try to self-substantiate their own market. Will it work? Maybe. Even if they do that, we may still take a total beating. Um, the Fed would have to start taking over real strict mechanisms in the economy, really contracting activity. That means you take volume off the top. That means you slow down the economy. The only way the Fed wins their reaction to a very stupid policy, a very stupid foreign policy, they would have to have three things basically not happen to win. And I think all three of them not happening is almost impossible. One, they would have to have no failed auctions. I'm sorry, we start having a run on T-bills, someone's not going to buy the next cycle. You're going to have a failed auction, and that is that's not the funeral, but it may be the wake. No forced defaults, which means we can still somehow pay our bills month to month. We can still pay the interest the to the investment holders, and they could continue running government operations without major cuts or without elimination of widespread services to cover the gap being caused by the financial destruction of a decaying dollar and a decaying T-bill system. Okay. All three of those being no's after what is potentially the downside of invading Greenland and screwing with the global currency, screwing with the backing of the entire economic global system. I don't think they can make all three. I don't think they can make it here in America. I don't think they can make it in Narnia. They painted themselves in the corner at that spot and they're screwed. Volatility hits the market. Soon as T-bills start going wrong, oh, 10-year treasuries, the basis points go wild. $300 to 500 basis point change in a couple of days. What you price debt at, what you priced your conversion, what you priced your hedging at, all get screwed up in less than a week. The fund managers don't know heads or tails. The retirement managers don't know head from tails. Your pension fund managers are asking what the fuck is going on, and nobody knows. Long-term bond markets, they just stop selling. You can't provide confidence in the short term. Why the fuck would I buy a 20-year bond? You're telling me you don't care about the economy. You don't care about allies. You don't care about the world. You don't care about peace. You don't care about prosperity. But I'm going to buy a 20-year note from you? No, that's not happening. That's really not happening. And when the T-bills and the dollars start going a little crazy and start heading toward the basement and melting down, sort of like, the elephant's foot in Chernobyl, that would be our economy. Um, Melted corium going into the basement, that would be our economy. Nobody gets a mortgage for the next 10 to 20 years. Americans have zero mobility. Zero. You leave your house, you will live outdoors for the rest of your life. You ready for that, America? Also, we can invade Greenland, an ally who already has agreements with us, that already allows military access, that already does intelligence work for us, that is involved in the Arctic protection system for us. You ready to never be able to refinance a mortgage again? Quick, give me a chorus of God Bless America. Do it quick. The end is nigh. Because here's the thing about what Britain learned in 1956. The sterling bonds only work if others choose to hold it. Confidence. See the trigger? See that major variable? It isn't the dollars. It isn't the percentage up or percentage down this quarter. It's the confidence in the institution of the Treasury. It's the confidence of the global market space. It's the confidence of a strong reserve currency in a US dollar. Destroy that confidence, all of a sudden your reserves start to fall. Skyfall. Ah, there goes all my money. Now, our problem today in 2026, it's a little different than 1956. Our problem is our bonds, our T-bills, our notes, all our treasuries only work if people believe America is institutionally sane, which right now we are not. We are one of the most cray-cray countries on planet Earth right now. And every day I wake up, I feel like we're losing more. We're less in control of the situation every day. That's a problem. If you're a banker in Malaysia and you need to park some cash, you're going to be parking it in T-bills after we invade Greenland? That fucking chance. Now, anybody who's over 50 and is looking at retirement, fairly soon, um, when the T-bills get fucked up and when the Fed intervenes, we lose 10 to 20 points off of equity in a couple of trading days. We're probably going to hit some circuit breakers and see some shutdowns of specific equities or entire exchanges because of the inability to control prices rationally, and the volatility gets outside the window. The circuit breaker will kick in and the markets will repeatedly get stopped and further decay confidence. So, yeah, if you're over 50 years old, and I don't care what your political stripe is, if you're 50 years old and you don't want to be a Walmart greeter when you're 91, then you better be against the invasion of Greenland. If you're a teacher, again, of any political stripe, any economic level, any sex, gender, race, ideology, I don't give a fuck. You better be against the thing of England, or the teacher's pension fund is going to go bankrupt. You'll be lucky if you get a minimum wage retirement. Hey, cops, talking to you, buddies. What's up? You like those rich retirement plans that are funded by the munis and the counties and the state, right? I've seen this generation's retirement, especially some of the chiefs. Ooh, you making serious bank when you retire. Ready to have your pension payments stop? T-bills go south, the dollar becomes unstable, people stop buying our debt, equities take a dump. You're taking a haircut from your pension, minimum, if you have a pension at all. So anybody 50 years or older, if you're for the Greenland invasion, just throw yourself off a bridge now. Save the time. Don't take the rest of us with you. I've worked my ass off now for shit. When did I start working? When I was 15, so 45 years. I've saved up a ton of money, and right tonight, I don't think I have enough money to get through the next few years because they're going to fuck something up, and we're going to end up like Turkey with 80% inflation in 1 year. They're going to file because they won't do one bad thing. Okay, because every evil idiot is talking into the dementia patient's ear. Okay, Bannon, Vaught, Miller, Hannity. They're going to get him to do several stupid things at once. Fire Jerome Powell, send the troops into Minneapolis, and invade Greenland all in 3 days. If that happens, or even if 2 or 3 of them, if Greenland plus another one happens, and you're over 50, you are never retiring. If you work for a living, you are never retiring because Social Security they'll just flat out cancel that. They will literally take the Treasury money and put it into a bank account in Qatar to add to the Venezuelan oil slush fund. And I'm not making a joke. I'm not being conspiratorial. Okay. Dear leader has already told them that the economy is his to play with. He runs every aspect of our company. He's in charge of everything. He makes all the decisions. Not even the judges can adjudicate him. How many times has Stephen Miller said that? 400 or 500 times now? So if you think any negative possibility is an impossibility, I would be more prepared psychologically than you are now. Because we could run into a problem that could be far worse than what you're imagining right now. Like literal canceling shit that belongs to you and me because their policy didn't work out. Oh, I thought we'll all be trillionaires after I invaded Greenland. No, the dollar collapsed and we can't sell any T-bills. And, the S&P is down 25%. Where do you think they're going to fill that hole? Out of their own pockets? You think Larry Ellison and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel are going to, and Mark Zuckerberg are going to line up and empty out their wallets to help rescue America and rescue the middle class? Don't be fucking naive. They don't give a shit. They literally don't give a shit whether you live or die. Hell, Trump doesn't even care if military or veterans live or die. He's against the VA and he thinks the military are suckers and losers. And this is where they really shoot themselves in the foot. They invade Greenland and all the things I'm talking about even partially come true. The US economy is in a world of hurt. We're in trouble. And it's going to take a generation to unfuck this up. But we're going to learn really quickly that we just handed somebody else our place in the world. Is it China? Is it India? Is it France? We're surrendering our place in the world because we have a criminal racket running the federal government trying to protect a pedophile ring. And the pedophile ring protection system is being run by one of the pedophiles who is also an adjudicated rapist, who's also a convicted felon. Do you think after all that, and we go into an economic crisis far worse than the mortgage crisis and COVID combined, do you think we're going to have any standing in the world left? A little bit, maybe. Because right now, the world is both laughing and terrified about what America's doing, what America's saying, and how we are acting. If Congress does not intervene, even the medium level problem of a military seizure of Greenland would be catastrophic. That's if central bank managers, investment funds around the world, sovereign funds around the world just don't go apeshit like I was describing earlier. Just go apeshit and go, we're out. They're insane. Can't do it. It's like the guy who really wants a divorce, who he literally turns around to his wife and goes, here's the bank accounts, here's the house, here's the car, I sign it all over to you. Hasta luego. Boom, walks out the door, you never see him again. That could be the Norway National Fund. That could be Japan, the largest holder of US treasuries. 3.5 trillion. And when I say it goes south, if they go ape shit, I mean, they truly go ape shit and decide they don't give a fuck anymore and they're literally done with America, it's a breakup. I'm not giving you back your albums. I'm breaking them all and throwing them out the window on the front lawn. That kind of breakup. In 6 weeks, the Treasury liquidity is screwed. Spreads are all over the place. Nobody knows the compass direction of the market anymore. It's just dislocation all over the place. You're going to have deleveraging internationally, and it'll be complete chaos in 6 weeks or less. Like I said, you lose 20% easy off the equity market, the stock market, and then all your credit rates start going crazy. Everything from the bank loan rate, the overnight rate, the basis points jump up by hundreds of basis points in days or weeks. Nobody can price anything. And when you can't price risk, you can't accurately spend capital. You can't invest. You can't margin. You can't hedge. You can't perform the basic functions of a giant economy like America's or the massive global economy all said and done. We run into a sell America trend. Remember, we put tariffs on Canada. Ford in Ontario, the provincial leader in Ontario, said, take all the American booze off the shelf now. We're not going to kowtow and be bullied. We're just not going to sell your products. Fuck you. Okay. Jim Beam Distillery is just shut down their main distillery because they can't sell bourbon. They're selling bourbon so cheap here. It is incredible. It's not just one label. Because you got to remember, a lot of the bourbon and whiskeys, they're actually made by a couple of plants and it's just a sticker. It's the same booze. Um, you can buy, mid-grade, decent stuff like Bullet Rye 95 proof, 1.5 liter bottle, discounted 25%. The second bottle, 5 cents. Yeah. Bourbon is totally oversupplied, and bourbon distilleries are shutting down because of the Canadian tariffs and the state liquor stores, the liquor control boards, starting with Ontario. Nova Scotia did it. Other places did it. They took American booze, American wine, American beer off the shelves, and that's what's hitting our economy. So instead of a bunch of people working at the distillery this year for Jim Beam, all those people got furloughed. Why? Because we had a petulant little man-child who doesn't understand how economies work start trying to bully Canada, and it backfired on us. What are you going to do when the backfiring gets a hell of a lot bigger? And long term, like 3 years on, after we totally screw ourselves, we literally slam our face into a door jam over Greenland. The credit spreads never repair themselves. We wouldn't be able to price risk for years. So the spreads are just crazy. And people will stop moving money, they'll stop conversions because they can't calculate the outcome. We're right back into the bank crisis and the banks holding all this qualitative easing shit on their books. Where does that come out of? That comes out of your savings, your retirement. It ain't coming out of Larry Ellison's ass. It ain't coming out of Elon Musk's ass. It's coming out of yours. Long term, after 3 years, what are mortgages now? 7.38 or something like that? Around that neighborhood? You won't be able to touch a mortgage under 15, 18%. Like the housing market seizes up. You will not be able to buy or sell a home unless you already have cash. And how do people most get their cash to buy another home? From the current equity in the home they live in. But once we can't sell properties and nobody can get mortgages, the value of a home plummets. So are you going to have the cash to do that step up? That magic window 12-year step up that Americans love to do? You buy your starter home, you build some equity, you use that equity, you sell the house, boom, you get a bigger home. All ends. Now, he already wants to end that. That's with the 50-year mortgage that I wrote a whole essay about that. The 50-year mortgage is about destroying housing for the middle class. And they know it. Because two-thirds of Americans will no longer qualify for a mortgage. If you think the qualifying parameters on a 30 are going to be the same at 50 years, your entire working life, no, they're not. No, they're not. Most people will not qualify for a home loan. Okay. You will be rent slaves. You'll be a victim of rent seeking, and your kids and your grandkids will be the victim of rent seeking for their entire lives. No peace, no prosperity, no wealth building, unless you're within Trump's orbit of economic titans. And if this goes bad, nobody retires. We all work like it's the 17th century. Your kids will start working when they're 10 or 11, and they will work till they drop dead somewhere between 55 and 95. No retirements, no relaxation, not even a nursing home. Because if you need a nursing home, you're dead because there won't be any nursing homes. Because when they get rid of Medicare, there goes nursing homes. The whole nursing home industry is underpinned by Medicare and Social Security. Those businesses will just go away. They won't be a thing. Oh, good luck buying an insurance policy. Good luck buying a liability bond. Oh, do you have an annuity? Did you get a settlement that pays you out in an annuity? Or did your grandparents leave you a little bit and it's in an annuity? Well, that annuity is based probably on what? At least in portion, maybe a large portion, US Treasuries. They were the safest instrument on planet Earth, the safest instrument mankind has ever known. They want to destroy that because a dementia patient wants to copy Putin being an international dictator and not gain a single strategic, economic, or military advantage while doing it, but costing us trillions. We already have an insurance problem in this country. Florida, Texas, California, it's horrible. Horrible. It's why prices are falling out in the West Coast. People can't get fire insurance and other liability insurances. They're having a tough time. Screw with the dollar, T-bills, start causing problem in the bond market. The insurance and reinsurance is the bond market. Okay, screw that up. Whatever your car insurance costs you today, multiply that by 10. That's if they will give you a policy. Are you ready to walk or bike to work? I mean, how much of a blow are Americans willing to take here? That's what I got to ask. Because the picture is ugly. Like far before you get out of 10 out of 10 bad case scenario, you get to 5, 6 bad case, you're already losing financial institutions. Businesses are failing. Pension and retirement funds are failing. Also, we can invade Greenland to make a dementia patient have a distraction to the fact he's a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, and he's not in the Epstein files. He is the Epstein files. Is Greenland worth that? To make no gain whatsoever, economically, strategically, militarily, foreign relation, it's all negative. All negative. Again, I'll restate my back of the head fear. They want this. They own everything. Look at the consolidation of the markets now, the consolidation of ownership. They don't care if their assets fall by 50%. Your assets are going to fall by 99%. They're going to be further ahead of you after the crash. And they know this. Larry Ellison just won't own Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Tony I 5 other things. He'll own every goddamn newspaper and TV station that he wants to buy. Greenland destroys us. It hands power to the nationalists led by that degenerate convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, suspected pedophile. Oh, did you hear two of the victims signed on to the special master case with Kona and Massey today? Hooah! Because the Republicans' first retort was, well, no victim asked for a special master. Hmm. Two victims stood up. I'll put my name right there. I want a special master. The DOJ is failing at what they're doing and they refuse to comply with the law. My signature. If you think they're doing this for any reasonable purpose going into Greenland, you would be wrong, you'd be lying to yourself, or you're just an idiot who's already drank the great Kool-Aid and asking for more. Well, great Flavor Aid. We should stop picking on Kool-Aid. It was actually Flavor Aid. Yeah. um, so, what do you think? Is it worth it? Potentially destroying the treasuries and the bills, your pension, your retirement, your savings, your ability to buy a home, your ability to finance a car, your ability to have a credit card. They're burning down the house. Burning down the house. Talking heads. They're doing it. Now they're going like, how do we make it burn faster? Let's invade Greenland. That'll do it. It's like a movie Snatch. When they go into the gambling house, the bookie house. There's no money. All bets are off. He invades Greenland. All bets are off. And good luck, America, because you're going to fucking need it. The damage that will be entailed in this will be the worst thing we've gone through, other than the Great Depression or one of the world wars. All to stroke the ego of a convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, suspected pedophile. How is this right? How is this sane? How is this even considered foreign policy? Beware where we're heading. It's not good. Be independent. Vote independent. Run for local office as an independent. Until next time, please think about it.